In this video, I'll be building a landing page from scratch, and I'll be showing off some of the more advanced and more interesting design and layout features in Thrive Architect. Hello, I'm Shane Malach from Thrive Themes, and today I'm going to be building a home page starting from a completely blank canvas. And this is the page that we're going to be building. So as you can see, it is a modern, very clean looking home page design with many different layout features. And there are two things that I'm going to be emphasizing during today's tutorial. The first one is that this is a no Photoshop page. So even though there's a lot of really cool design stuff going on here, nothing here was done in a image editor. All we are using are free pictures that we got off of a free image site, and all you have to do is resize and crop them. You can do that within WordPress, and I'll link to description on how to do that below. So there's really no image editing of any kind needed. All the effects you see here are done in Thrive Architect. The second thing is that I'm going to be showing you how I prepare this and how I establish my workflow in such a way that I don't have to do any work twice, and that basically I can build this as efficiently as possible. So right here I have my completely blank template, and the first thing I would do is I would create, let's have some headings and some text. I want 3 levels of headings and a paragraph. So I'll switch this to heading 2, switch this to heading 3, and I'll change the labels here as well so that I don't get confused. And I want this, and I also want to set up background sections. So I want to edit my background section to be the way I want it to be. And when I have my basic building blocks, then I will start building the page. So let's start with the text. I'm using a plugin called What Font, which I can use to click on stuff and see what it is. So I can see the font is Montserrat, font size, and I can see this is, for example, my heading 1, Montserrat 200, 60, 72. So 200 is the font weight, that's a light font weight, and I can basically see that we're using 500 and 200 as the font weights. And looking here, I can basically see those are the 2 font weights being used on the page. So let's start with that. Right here, I want to go to my landing page settings, and let's start with the heading 1. So I'll change this to Google Fonts, search for the font, and I know that I want 200 and 500, and I apply that. And then let's check out the size. Here we have 60 and 72 line height for the heading 1. So I enter these values, 60 and 72. Now for this, I'm not going to set a color. I could set it to white, but then it would disappear on my canvas. So I'm just going to leave the default color. So let's see what headings 2 and 3, I would say this is heading 2, this is heading 3. So our heading 2, I'm going to copy this color right here. And we have 3542, same font. So what I will do is I'll click on apply to all headings. So it's applied the same font weights, and I'll apply this color here. I will also make sure that this color is saved, which I already have. So I'm saving this color for my palette so I can reuse it later. That's another step in preparation. And now I've forgotten the sizes, 35, 42. So we've got 35 and 42. And then our heading 3, we grab this color code as well. That's 2032. So I apply the color. I'll save this color as well. There we go. And here we go, 2032. Then we have a paragraph. So the default paragraph, I would say, is this here. We've got another color code. It is Montserrat 300 in this case, 1829. All right, so paragraph is here. Apply the color, save the color. And once again, we go to Montserrat. We had 300, 500. I'm going to use the same bold style because I don't want to load too many fonts here, right? The more fonts you load, the slower the page gets. So I try to keep it to a minimum. Okay, so I apply that, and then we go 18 and 29. All right, so now I've got my basic font settings ready. Another thing I want to do is I'm actually going to make the content cover the entire screen width, and I'm going to use page sections. I'll take my section here, I will make it go 1080. I will give it 20 pixel side padding. So that's the content width inside the section, whereas the background goes the full width. And by the way, at this point, I'll zoom out a bit because I'm on a small screen. This gives me a bit of an easier time working on a small screen. So I just used Control- to zoom out in the browser. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, on these building blocks, I'm going to do some mobile editing right away. So on the tablet view, I think this is fine. I don't think I have to change anything here. But on a phone view, I want to make this one smaller for sure. So maybe reduce that to 40 and reduce the line height as well. And this one here, probably also reduce it maybe to 32, something like this, and the others can stay the same. And on my page section, I want to reduce the side paddings to 10. And now I've got mobile ready building blocks. Now I'll duplicate my background section several times because I'll use many sections here. Now one more trick I want to show you. I will put my headings into the first section here. Because as you can see, there's extra space below each of the text blocks. And that is from the theme. So my themes CSS is adding spaces here that I don't want in this case. I want to have complete control over all the spacing. So I'll select my background section. I'll go to Typography and Advanced, and I'll reduce all of the spacing here to 0. So I want to have, basically I want to be able to set the spacing exactly as I want, not as the theme determines. And I can do that by making sure that in my sections the typography is set to 0. Now I should have done that before, so what I'll actually do is I'll delete these sections, and because I want that again prepared in each section, so I'll choose this section, Advanced, set all of these to 0 instead of auto, and now I can duplicate this section. This is the one I want to use. Okay. So that is my starting point. And I save here as well. That is my starting point for building this template. Now let's put the section here and start with, we have a section with a background image. So let's get a background image. First, I will make a dark blue background color. I'll choose one of these actually, maybe this or maybe this. And this background color will show immediately even if someone's on a slow connection and the image is still loading. So that's why I add a background color. Then I add a background image. And I've already uploaded my background image here. I'll apply this and there we go. And I will build this part here first. So I'll copy this text and I'll put the headline in here. Paste my text and make this white. Then we have a subheading here that I will get as a text element, paste in, and then we have a button, and the button is also something I'm going to be reusing. So I will put a button in here, and we have click here to get started as the button text, here to get started. And okay, so let's do some editing on the button. We want this to not be aligned right now. In the typography options, we want to set it to all caps like this, and then it's time for what font again. So let's see, we have this color right here, 22 Montserrat. Okay, so typography on the button, I'll go 300 and 500 again. That, and then we had 22 and 1 EM line height, and we had this color that I saved. There we go. And then the button background is white, so I'll go to the background here, make this white. Now the button is also larger, and so there's clearly more spacing around the text here. I'm just going to approximate this. I'm not going to inspect exactly what the values are. Say maybe it's something like 22 and 25 on the sides, and then we definitely have rounded corners, so we apply a value here that's large enough to make it pill-shaped. Now what we have here is we've got this byline that's centered underneath the button. It's 14 pixels, and I'm going to copy this, and we need to add this byline, add a hover effect, and add shadow. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this in a box because because to center the button and the byline, I want to put both of them in a box. That's the easiest way to do that. So I'll put the button in this box and I'll put some text underneath the button. I'll paste this, and this was 14, and I will center align the text, and I will make the button full width. So now I can choose the content box that contains these elements, and I can change the width of the content box to whatever I want. Let's say 500, and both of them are aligned nicely. Now let's remove this bottom spacing or reduce it like this. Another thing is, inside this section I want in general text to be white, so I'll go like this. That applies to all not otherwise styled text. And now we see enough of the background now to start working on the background, because we clearly need an overlay here. So let's go to the background and add a gradient. And we have 2 points on the gradient. The first is this one, second is this one. So I've already saved these colors, and I want a different angle. Not quite sure, maybe something like this. So that is our background overlay. So that's just 2 colors and opacity set to around 80% to give this effect and make the text nicely readable. Now let's adjust spacing. We clearly have a lot of space around objects here. So let's start by using the background section itself and giving it a lot of bottom padding. And then definitely, generally, as a general rule, I apply bottom margins to stuff. And that's just a rule for myself, so it's easier to know where I need to adjust stuff. So let's say maybe 60 here. I think we should have a larger font size here, and then add a bit of spacing below this, a bit more, something like this. Now we have a bottom slanted border, and that is a decoration. I choose bottom slanted edge and then set it to something that looks nice, like this. Now, I almost forgot about the button. So there's 2 things we still need to do here. First of all, add a shadow. So we want to add a drop shadow that goes straight down. That's 270. We want to have less distance, I think, more blur perhaps, and make it a bit more transparent. How about that? And then a hover effect, which we're going to keep very simple. And here I'm going to just make it slightly transparent. Apply, exit, and there we go. That's our hover effect. So now we've gotten the top section here almost done. What we have here is this overlay. And by the way, even this logo is created just in Thrive Architect. So we've got an overlay, a logo, and a menu. So let's look at how to do that. Let's add top padding here, something like this. And let's get one of our sections on top of this one. I want 2 columns in here. 2 columns like this. I'm going to put a content box in the first column, which is going to be my unit for the logo, and text in the second column. And I'm just going to fill in some stuff before finalizing it. So we've got some text here. And here I want an icon. There's a light bulb icon like this. Make it a bit smaller. And also some text. Just place that underneath. Okay. All right, so the logo text is called Producti Corp. And a couple of things to do here. I think make it larger. And also add some spacing and make it all caps. And also make it bold, I think. So let's select this, make it bold. Okay. Then this icon here, I want this to be left aligned. I'll remove the margins and I want it to float. So that's an advanced layout and position. I can make it float, which makes other stuff slip next to it. Then I'll add a bit of a side margin here, and I'll just nudge this down by a few pixels to align them like this. Then for our menu here, let's see what we have. I'll select this text and I'll just make this a text menu. So, blog space, what was it, about something. That's my menu. I'll make that bold as well. And on the level of the column, so I select the column and I select typography and I right align this. And then on the level of the columns, I want things to be center aligned, so vertically centered like this. And also on the level of the columns, I think we have too much padding here, so maybe reduce that to 10 and 10. Like this. Now we want this overlapping effect. So how do we do that? So basically I take this section here and I push it down like that. So I add a negative margin to the top section. And actually it does need more, so something like this. I have to have more of a padding on this section here. And as you can see, as soon as I click on this section, it kind of rises to the top to make it easier to edit. If I click outside of it again, the other section comes in again. So let's choose this top background section and give it a background color of white and then make that somewhat transparent. So I'm not sure what the value is. Let's say 60, roughly like this. And now on this background section, I can go into typography and tell text to be white in general, unless otherwise styled. I'll make my icon white. And as you can see, we've got a problem, which is that this section is not visible as soon as I click out of it. So let's go back to select this background section. Let's go into layout and position and let's bump up the Z index, which basically is the order of layers of stuff on top of each other. I want to make sure that this has a higher Z index than the background section it's on top of. So now if I click outside of it, it looks fine. However, it is too white and it's too wide, too white and too wide. So let's further reduce here. This is just some tweaking, it's not that important. But this is pretty important for readability, so maybe this is better. And further tweaking here for the spacing, like this and like this. This looks better. So there we go, this is our top section done. Right, next up we have this section here with a light gray background and these boxes. And here we're going to do a lot of preparing and reusing to build this efficiently. All right, so first thing we need, I move one of these sections up here and I go to the background, settings, and apply light gray like this. And now what I want is, I want to eliminate this, this white gap here between the two sections. So first I'll just add a lot of top padding here. And then I'll choose the top section and apply negative margin to that. So this basically pushes the top section over the bottom section like this. And I need this padding so that the bottom section doesn't just disappear. Now when I click outside of it, I can see that the bottom section seems to be on top. So let me quickly save and preview this. So here we can see indeed this bottom section is on top of the one that should be on top of it. So I'll go here. If we remember, I added a Z index here of 10. So on this section here, we want a higher value, let's say 6. And on this one, on the bottom section here, it can remain 3. So now we have, this is on level 10, this is on level 6, this is on level 3. That's the way they stack, the way we want them to. All right, now we have this here and a subheading. That's our heading 2. It goes in here. Paste that, center align it, and then we want, I'll actually grab this, we want a subheading, which we will investigate here again. It has this color and it's 18, so it's the normal size, normal font, just a different color. Okay, so I'll apply that color first, and I'll also copy paste the text and center align it. All right. Now for these boxes, let's start by creating a 3-column layout. 1, 2, 3, like this, and then I will prepare by putting a box in here. On this box, we don't need any extra spacing here. And this box, we will make it white. We will give it rounded corners. We will give it, let's say, 30 pixel inside padding, and then we add a shadow. Again, we'll go straight down, very little distance, more blur, and less visibility, or more transparency. All right, then we've got 3 elements in each box. The first is an icon, which is this one. The second is a heading. We have a heading 3, which goes here. And on the content box typography, I'm going to center line this because I want the paragraph text below it to also be center aligned. Now on the icon, let's get rid of the top margin. And okay, let's copy paste some text. We've got some subheading here. And it's bold. And then we've got just some filler text here. And it is smaller, so the text here is a bit smaller. Maybe like this. Then I will apply to the icon here, I'll apply the color. I'll apply one of my saved colors from the gradient, but I'll make it full. And I want more spacing here, so maybe like this. All right, so that will be my first content box. And before I copy it, I want to go into tablet view, which makes no difference, but mobile view, so a very narrow screen here. Probably want to reduce the padding, maybe to 20. That's fine, okay. So I've already made a responsive edit here, and now I duplicate it. So now that everything's ready, I duplicate the content box, I put it here, I duplicate it again, and I put it here. Another thing we can see is that here the gap between these boxes is larger than here. So let's go to the columns and increase the gutter width to something like this. And then we change the icons. This one is a heart. And I'll give this the other gradient color. And then we have one more icon. And I'll give this a color in between those two so that there's kind of a gradient effect across the icons as well. And then this box here is actually very similar, and it basically consists of stuff that we've already made. So I'll copy this box here and place it below the columns. I can get rid of this. I will select it and give it the shade of blue that it has. And I want to make the text inside white. So on the box, I'll make this white, and this I have to make white separately. All right, so here we have, this is the call to action box, and this isn't bold. And here we have some text that is reduced in width, which I'm going to go do like this. So this is important. I don't add huge side paddings to the box. I reduce the max width of the content inside it to get this effect, because otherwise stuff will be squished together. Another thing we have is we have a button and we have more space top and bottom. So let's start with the spacing, like 50 maybe. I think also the text is larger here again, like this, and there's less of it. And then let's get a button. And what I'll do is I'll actually get the content box that this is inside, drop it in here. I'll get rid of the byline because you don't have that anymore. I'll get rid of the bottom spacing on the button and on the box. And then I want to center line the box and maybe reduce the width. Call to action. And then also just make this a bit smaller, so I'll reduce this value here by a few pixels. So this is our secondary call to action. Also, I think this text here should be a bit larger, so maybe like this, add a bit more space. There we go. Now we've got some more spacing stuff to do, so definitely there's some space here, maybe a bit less. Let's select these columns here and definitely add more space here and here, so top and bottom like this. And also let's have a look before we move on. Let's have a look at what this looks like on different screen sizes. Here I think this is actually fine the way it wraps, but let's choose this column here or this content box and add some spacing. I'll try to match the gap between these here roughly. So this looks a bit better, and I think that's fine for the mobile view or the tablet view. And then let's check the phone view. So here, same thing. Let's add some space here between the boxes. And as we can see, there's some editing we still need to do at the top here, but for now I want to move on with the rest of the content. So let's switch back to desktop and see what we got next, because the next bit is pretty interesting. This here is some heavily designed stuff that you can do all of in Thrive Architect. Like I said, no external tools needed. So we can reuse some stuff. This here, I should put this in a content box, because then it creates basically a group that I can copy and paste. So I'll put these two in a content box like this. I'll duplicate the box and then move it down into the new section. Inside this section, what I'm going to do is add top padding, and then on the content box I'm going to add negative margin like this. Let's put more top padding here like this to get this nice overlapping effect on the section. Very subtle, but looks cool. And then we need to prepare this here. So we need a 2-column layout. 2 columns. I'll start by copying the text. So we have a heading 3 here. We'll switch this to H3. Paste this text, make it bold, and also make it larger. And I also definitely have some extra width here. There's a lot of space in between here, so I'll do that by just increasing this gutter width. Okay, then we have some more text. This is just normal paragraph text, I believe. So place this here. And then we have this bit here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a content box inside the column, which is going to be my container for this little effect here. So what we have is we've got a number. I'll place here. It's number 1, bold. And we've got a divider line. So let's get the divider, put it inside this box here. And we give it the color it has, which is this, I believe. And it's 1 pixel. And it's not very wide. It's, I don't know, 200 pixels maybe. Then let's reduce the space around it. And what we want to do on our paragraph here is we want to go into advanced settings and give this an absolute position. And I want it to be basically top left 0, 0. That's inside that box. It will be top left 0, 0. And then I select this divider and I basically move it to the side a bit. Just adjust the spacing until I have the desired effect. I think maybe a bit more space on the side like this. So there we have our effect. And then the image. Here comes the interesting part. So what we need is we need our image first of all. So all I did here is I got some images and I cropped them to 300 by 300 pixels square. So I want this. Then I want to give this a very wide border. So it's a pale gray like this. And it's really wide. In fact, I'll set it to a specific value, 40 pixels. And we'll also give it a bit of rounding on the edges. Then we're going to apply a shadow, very similar to the ones we had before. Give it a lot of blur so it really stands out, and then reduce that opacity. That looks about right. Okay, and now this thing in the background. This is pretty interesting how we can build this. The features in Thrive Architect aren't perfect for this kind of thing, but we can make it work. So what we want is, we want to set the height here to 300. I want to set the inside padding to 40 all around. And then we want to apply the same background gradient that we've had before. So we take our color points here. Again, I'll just make it completely opaque. But it's the same colors as we applied to the image here in the top section, just without the transparency. So we have this, we apply this, then we put a white content box inside, and that's how we create this basically thick border effect. Here we want this to be 0 all around, and we make it white. Now what we need to do is also, let's get rid of this. So what I'll do now is I'll go to the advanced layout and position on the outside box here and set it to absolute, which makes it jump up here. Now while we're at it, let me go here and also remove the top margin here, and then I can just about still select this. As you can see, when I make it position absolute, it loses some of its dimensions. And this is where the features we have here aren't ideal, but what I can do is I can choose the inside box. I can set a minimum height here of 300, and then I can give it inside padding, because I can't set a fixed width, but I can give it inside padding on it until it's the right size. So it's got a fixed height and it's got inside padding to basically make it the right size. Then I will go to edit position. I want it to be linked to the top left corner, and then I'll move it down and to the side, and I can move it outside the content area even here, like this. I'll save that position, and now we can see, well, now it covers this image. So this is a z-index thing again. So on this image, I want to make sure that it's left aligned. That's fine. And then I'll just increase the z-index like this. So now we've got the desired effect. Now here to continue, I'll prepare some more things. So on this column, first of all, we need to move down the content a bit. And on the columns, because we have this stuff hanging outside of the content area, we need to add a lot of bottom margin to compensate for that. So really generous bottom margin like this. And another thing I'm going to do, first of all here, let's put on this content box more bottom margin. Now on my columns, or on this whole layout, before I start duplicating this, let's make sure it looks good on all sizes. So columns here on a medium size, let's move this stuff closer together, and let's reduce the size of the border here. Let's reduce that to 30, which means here we're also going to reduce this to 30, and we're going to change some of our values. So this will be 280, and on the inside box I'm going to take 10 off each side to adjust for this again. And then let's also move the image over in this direction a bit and edit the position of the background square thing. So we'll set a new position for this that's a bit closer. It can still go outside the content area, just not as far this time. So maybe like this. Here on this side, let's reduce this, maybe actually to 0. Okay, this looks better on the smaller screen. And then let's look at the smallest screen. Here what we need, let's add a top margin here. And apart from that, I think it looks all right. Now what we could also do, we could shrink the whole thing to make it fit. So actually let's do that. And get rid of the side thing like this. And now if we shrink this to, let's say 260, again, we have to size this appropriately. So we change our dimensions here on these boxes. And the layout is about right. So now we have this looking pretty good on all screen sizes. And now I'll save this, and now it's ready to copy. So I'll duplicate this, select the columns, click on reverse order, and then just make a few small adjustments. So we have number 2 here. We'll change the text here, not really that important. And here, definitely change the alignments. So I want this right aligned this time, which means here we'll edit the position. Basically go over here instead. Save that. And then here I'll also have to readjust some things, most likely on the different views. So I'll choose this again, edit the position again, move it to the other side. And on the mobile view, here I want to reverse the order again. So I'll choose the columns and uncheck reverse order because I want it to be this way around. Now we've got a bit much spacing here, so let's choose the columns here where we added all this space and reduce that on the mobile view. So let's say 45 and do the same here, 45. All right, so now one more, and then, okay, I'd replace the image here. That's pretty obvious. And then we have the columns again. I'll duplicate this again. Now we can take a straight duplicate of this one and place it at the bottom, change this to 3, change the text, change the image, and so on. So this is how we get this really advanced layout with just preparing it once and then making minor adjustments to the copied versions. Next up, we've got a dark image background section with kind of a parallax effect and some text on top of it. So let's go for that. This is pretty simple compared to what we just did now. What we already want is we want this content box content inside the next section on the page. Then we'll select the background section, give it a dark background color and an image. So we'll have this one and we'll make it a static background image. And then we need a gradient overlay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically apply the same one at first. Oh, actually it was supposed to be this and this, and then I'll just make them darker. So I'll take basically the same colors, make them darker, maybe increase this to like 85, and here same thing, same color but darker, and 85. In typography, let's also define the text should generally be white in here. And these are already otherwise styled, so I'll change this to white and white. Then we've got some text. Which will center align. And then we definitely need some inside padding here. And on this heading here, we want some bottom margin. Now we have a content box here that's very similar to the one we already had here. So let's duplicate this and move the duplicate down into our new section. All right, and then spacing again. So we add some spacing here. We'll change this button overlay, or we'll change this button style, I should say, to give it a gradient overlay. And once again, I'm going to reuse the colors I've already used and make them opaque. Then we'll want the button text to be white. And for a hover effect, I think the easiest way to do this is to just get the gradient and just make both colors a little lighter. That gives a nice hover effect like this. And now the only difference is that here we have this light gray background. So on the box, I will choose the background and apply the light gray that we've had before. And then the text needs to be a different color. The text needs to be, I believe, this color that we've already saved. All right. Okay, then we have one more heading, subheading, and some social icons, and then a footer area. So we get, well, let's duplicate this text. We basically have a very similar layout here. We've got text, and we've got this here above. And we'll change the colors here again. And then in the, so to the overlap effect, we've already done that. We add top padding here to this section, and we add a negative margin to our box here until that looks more or less nice. Here, let me get rid of some of this text, seems like too much. Then we've got social icons, pretty simple. We have icon only, a nice minimal style, and then we can also change which icons are being shown and center align them. Then let's add some bottom margin to this. And our final section is a dark blue that I think I've saved here. And in here, so here's a little trick that is useful to know about. So I put this in here, I have two columns. Then I put my text, so I have some copyright text, and of course I can't see it, so I'll go to the background because I want text in here to be white in general. I'll set it on the background. All right, so we've got some copyright text here, and we've got some menu stuff here. So that's like disclaimer, privacy, something like that, and I just link these up. And what I want to do is here I want to select the column that this is inside, and on the column I want to right align this. And then we can get rid of the last page section here. On smaller screens, especially on the very small one, this becomes relevant. I want to select the column, so on the block level I'm going to center align this, and on the block level center align this. So this works better when you do it on the block level, such as the column, than if you do it in line. Okay, so the way CSS works, basically inline changes are not mobile responsive. Our developers have done something to make some inline changes mobile responsive, but it definitely works more reliably when you make responsive changes on the block level rather than inline. All right, so that brings us to almost the end of our build. Let's put some final touches on it with responsive editing. So on the desktop view, this already looks fine. I think we've done, obviously it could always take a bit more polishing, but I'm not going to go into that. So let's look at the tablet view. This still looks fine. Here, the angle, let's adjust this angle to something slightly different, but this is fine. This looks good. These we've already optimized. Because we've reused so many elements, and because we've already made the text sizes fit and all that before we even started, there's very little to do here. So then the mobile view here, there's going to be some stuff to do. So on the column level, same principle here. I want this to center align. And my content box here, I'll choose the content box and I'll just nudge it to the side a little bit like this. And then we also have some, probably get rid of this. There we go. Now we've gotten rid of that gap at the top. Here, I think this is fine. Maybe I could resize this a bit. I would reduce this and reduce this as well. And then definitely we need to change the angle again here, something flatter. All right, then this looks good. I think this is fine. Obviously I still change the images and all that, but I don't want to take all that time. This is also fine, this is also fine. So I think the rest is fine. All right, so that is our build done. We've got a really nice looking page, no Photoshop involved, all built in however long this took. So Let us know if you like longer tutorials like this. Of course, I did a lot of fairly complicated stuff to make this happen. And we don't advocate that, unless it's your job to design websites, we don't actually advocate that you spend this much time on small details. In fact, that's why we create templates, is so that you don't have to do fiddling like this. However, I wanted to show you what you can do with this editor. And I also wanted to show you this in real time so that you see that, obviously it's not done in 5 minutes, but it can be done pretty efficiently. Speaking of templates, you can get the template for this very page that I just built as a download. It's available right now in the Thrive Architect plugin. So let me know what you thought of this tutorial, and if you have any other questions or any other requests, just leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.